Good afternoon and welcome back to the garden. Now we were going to do the rhubarb today, but there's such a lot of wind and the camera will pick up all the wind noise instead of me. So we'll probably, if it's not so windy tomorrow, we'll probably do that tomorrow and put it out again. So in the meantime, we've come into the bottom greenhouse and I've lifted some of the geraniums from the front of the house and I've brought them down ready to take the cuttings off. So I thought we'll do the cuttings of the geraniums and the ivy leaf. Here's some of the plants out the front, believe it or not, except for that one which is an ivy leaf, if I can get it, there's two geraniums there. That's how big they've got with this overwintering that we keep doing. This is an ivy leaf and it's a pretty pink, as you can see. I'll leave some of the flowers on so I know what colour they are when I'm doing the cuttings. We're going to take some cuttings off this. They do take cuttings quite easy off the ivy leaf, so we'll do that first. Now I have already taken some cuttings. I'll just show you in the big trays. There you are, there's quite a few in there, and as you can see there's some, I have sprayed with a fungicide, I'll show you in a short while, and it does leave a white trace where you've used it, but being the cuttings it doesn't really matter. There's no heat going in these trays, obviously we're right down at the bottom and we haven't got heat down here, but they're in the tray. There's quite a few cuttings in there, and again they've been sprayed, labelled, just hope the autumn warmth can just get them to root. When I run out of room in those two big trays, I started traying them up into these 10s. I've done 3, but the trouble with the trays that hold 10, you can't get more than 1 into a nursery tray, so there's 3 trays taking up quite a bit of room for 30 cuttings, but it'll be alright. We're going to do 3 more. Now in the transporting them down here, 2 bits have got broken off, so we'll take the cuttings off these 2 first and then we'll take the rest of the 10, at least 10 now. It's just a normal nodal cutting. You see the top of the plants there, and these are the nodes, so we'll just cut below this node here like that, a little bit higher in one because we will cut again, and then there's another one there. Look, we'll take that one while we're here as well, and I'm afraid that is if you're really desperate for cuttings, you could make a cutting from that one to that one by cutting under there, but I've got plenty, so I'll take it this way. Quite simple. Can you see this has got a flower on it there? Just break that off, and then this leaf we don't want, we'll break that off, and the sepals, I think they're called, we'll take those off like that. It's not really necessary, but if you can get them off, they're the first things that will, those things are the ones that dry out first, so if they dry out and then get wet they will go a little bit mouldy, which could affect the whole plant. Now we'll cut again like that into the powder. You don't really need to dip these geraniums into water, because at one time, if I remember right, we used to like to let the geraniums sort of skin over naturally before we took the cutting, but we don't do that now. The cutting compost is normal potting, and I've got some of this vermiculite in. This is the large vermiculite, but it really does hold the compost open. You can actually use it on its own and actually grow plants in. I don't think there's any nutrients in it, so you'll have to feed. This one then, we'll go there, look, down a little bit because we can cut it again. And then with geraniums, I just like to knock these back like that. I'm looking to see if there's a flower in there, but this time there isn't, so it's best if you can take the flower off because it will flower. There is another little piece growing there, look, so we'll leave that. Take those off if I can. Like that, look. Into the rooting powder, tap it, get your trusty stick and put it in 2/3 into the compost and firm it. I did moisten the compost a little bit before I started because if it's too dry it means you've got to water them well after. That's one of the broken pieces and this is the other broken piece, but I can get 1, 2 definitely. 2 I think, that's all we can get off that. But we'll just take it off there. And you can see how pretty the flowers are on it. And we'll go there, look. Just take that out. And looking at that, I can't guarantee that will root, and I've only got 10, so I'm not going to take one. There's plenty still on that plant. There we go, look, you can see where this one has been broken, but we've still got this nice shoot here. We'll still use that and that for the cutting and then grow that on. So if we take them, we use the knife on that one. You can see where these bits have dried. Now if they get wet, I'm sure they'll rot and then they'll rot onto the stem, so that's why we remove them, if we can. Get rid of some of these leaves. Now here is a flower bud, so we need to take that off. Very careful taking those off. Then take as much as this as we can off. That's about it. This bit here that's broken is actually nice and dry, so we won't worry about that at all. We'll try and leave that out of the compost. Let's cut the bottom again. There we go. And then you can use, I'm using rooting powder. You can actually use rooting liquid as well. It's, whatever you've got you can use. Can you see where that one, I've just left that dried piece out of the compost a little bit. And then we'll do this one and then I'll finish the tray. So there's your cut in. I think what we'll do is get that flower. If you pinch it just below where the flower joins the stem and just move, it does come off quite easy. It's these little devils in here that take the getting off. Let's take some of these leaves off and see what we've got. And we'll take that one, that flower head off. That's it. Take some of these off. We'll do this one and then we'll do some geraniums. Or pelargoniums as they like to be called. They're worse than the onions. They're like the proper name these days. Seems a bit of a long cutting, but that one will go in nicely. Try not to hit the bottom of the tray though if you're going to go deep. If you find they're a bit long, try to go sideways rather than straight down, you see? That'll root nicely now. I think that's the basics of taking the ivy leaf cutting. So I'll finish this tray, there's only 6, and then I'll come back. 10 ivy leaf geraniums. If you do it right, not like I've missed one here. Can you see that, look, with that flower? That's got to come off. So I'll take that off. The flowers on them won't stop them rooting, but they will open, rot very quickly in that atmosphere and drop down and rot the stem. So you must take them off. There's the label. Can't put the label in the plants because this one has to sit on top just to keep the air nice and moist in there while they root. Before we do any more cuttings, we'll do one more tray of the normal geraniums in a moment. Now I am going to actually overwinter all these cuttings and all these plants here in this greenhouse. Now luckily it faces south and it has an end wall and a side wall. So if you have a little bit of sun in the day, those walls will warm up, and in the night they do radiate back out. There's no electricity down here. I won't have paraffin heaters, I just don't like the smell of them. Now if it gets cold, if you noticed, I've already taken the shelving away from the glass, moved it to here so that the plants are away from the cold glass on the front of the greenhouse. So if it gets cold, I should move those at that end into the centre, which I probably will anyway. And if it gets cold, cover the whole lot with several layers of fleece, like we've done all through last year. Never lost a plant last year by doing it that way. But then again, it depends on how cold it's going to get. So we'll keep an eye. We've got a thermometer. There's 20 degrees in here at the moment, so it's nice and pleasant. It's certainly not windy like it is out there. When I'm doing all these geraniums, etc., to get ready for winter, you can see that one's thrown a flower. So take that off. That's because it's quite warm in here in the day on these late sunny days of the autumn, and they will keep flowering. So when I get them out of the garden, they look all nice and green, etc. Anyway, I strip them literally to that, and I take all the bits off that are dead like that, and the flowers, look, that's got a flower on it. It doesn't want to flower now. You see this piece here is not doing any good. Let's get rid of that. Now this is actually a piece of one of the big geraniums that had rooted and then fallen off. So what I did was I lifted it and just put it here so I could show you how I overwinter them. I like to get them like that, and then I can see if there's any vine weevil in there. Obviously there's not. Now when I do the compost for these, this is the same as what we've been doing for those root cuttings. The only difference is I do add some Suscon Green, which is, I believe it's still available, that will stop the vine weevil, not only for this part of overwintering, but next year when you pop them up. So it might be expensive, but it's well worth it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 plants in that half a bucket, and they'll sit in there for the winter. If I see a flower coming on them, because they're always trying to flower them, I take those off best I can, and I do spray them. I'll show you the spray now. I do spray them when I've got them ready. This tray here that we've just seen, I'll spray that in a moment. I just use this Fungus Clear Ultra 2. Make sure you shake it up well, and it will leave a white deposit on the leaves. But now it's actually a sulphur in a suspension liquid, and I think it's the sulphur that stays on the leaves. But it's not too bad. Don't put this on your vegetables. Keep it for the ornamentals, and then just spray it round. Try and spray under the leaves as well if you can, all the way, and don't forget to spray hand like I do. And then over the top. Can you see that white coming on it? You've got it. That's what I do to all of these. If you look careful, you can see some have got white deposits on them. They're the ones that's been done. And I also just keep them moist. If I've got a quarter of a watering can and I just go over that like that, that's all they'll ever get once a month. I do not water them at all in the winter. I just let them sit. They'll be fine. That's how I overwinter them. The most important thing is watching the weather and getting those covers on them before it gets too cold. Then they'll hold the heat underneath. And luckily, I do believe I've been told we're going to have an Indian summer this year, so we'll have no trouble up to the time when it really does get cold, because it's going to be quite warm in here. The trouble will start when we get cold, and then we need to cover them. Now time's getting on a little now, and it's getting very cold out there at the moment with that wind, so I'll just do 2 geraniums just to show you basically how to do them. It's a lovely deep red, so we need plenty of those light red ones. Same way, pinch it together and just take that off. If you don't do that, you'll probably break it off down here. There's an old flower stand there, look, they just come off anyway. We'll reduce the leaves carefully to those. There's 2 there, that's plenty, and we'll take these sepals off. I'm sure they're called sepals, no doubt it's wrong, but sounds good. And take those dried ones off, and it's basically the same. It's just the same for most softwood internodal cuttings. Just cut it there, not through. Must have a sharp knife though. Now all these trays etc that we're using, and the knife blade is mine, that's just white. All these trays and lids have all been washed in Jay's fluid, so we know they're nice and clean and sterile, ready for the cuttings. The knife, I don't believe in wiping the knife with bleach or anything. Before I started, I gave it to wash in Jay's fluid, then in clean water, and when I've finished I'll do the same. I'll just wipe it with a cloth with Jay's on it. Right, look at this one for a flower stem. Beautiful colour again. And just pinch either side of that and leave a back, and there it's gone. These ones, spent ones, they just come off quite easy. The leaves, just carefully take them down and they'll come off like that, look. No flower bud in there because we've removed that one. Take these off, but you can see where these will get wet and will rot the stem, and then it's all been a waste if we let it rot. That's it, look. And there and down. Nice clean cut into the powder, and then into this potting there. So that'll be it for now. I shall see you when we do that rhubarb. Take care everyone. Bye now.